Do you want to upskill faster? The best way is to get real-world experience. You can achieve this by contributing to open source. No matter where you are in your career, even before your career starts, or if you've been coding for over 15 years like me, getting involved in open source will accelerate your learning and career. Another benefit of contributing to open source and consistently adding value to a project is that you will become more visible to companies who may be looking to hire. Plus, by contributing to open source, you will be interacting with contributors and maintainers from around the globe. Think different time zones, different languages, and different ways of working. Don't go anywhere to learn how to contribute to open source. This video will be a step-by-step guide you can follow. Yes, we will be in the terminal and changing code in our IDE and contributing to the open source project Kestra on GitHub. What will we cover? What is open source? Why you should contribute to open source? How to find open source projects and repos? How to validate the project's repos? Contributing and getting our pull request or merge request accepted? And what to do after you've contributed. Let's start with what is open source. Yes, it refers to software where the source code, design, or content is made publicly available for anyone to use. But to me, it's more than this. I like to think of open source as Instagram for code, but with a twist. The twist is people can contribute to open source projects, make changes, suggestions, improvements, and use the project itself. Coding is an art, and you get to see how other artists create features and their projects. I'm not just talking about the design here, but also how we architect the project. You want to contribute to what I call real open source projects. Those that are friendly, welcoming, and professional. Just to be clear, that doesn't mean they are perfect. No project is. And that is where you come in. Being new to a project, you have a superpower. People think being new to a project is a disadvantage, but actually it's an advantage, and you won't have that superpower forever, as this is often lost when you become familiar with a project. There are multiple ways to find an open source project to contribute to. Social media. People are posting on X about projects, either their own, the company they work for, or one that they like. This is a great way to find friendly projects. GitHub trending page. There are super popular repos on GitHub's trending page. There are some filters for the trending duration and also technologies used in the repo. However, I don't think that this is a good way to find projects to contribute to, because popular doesn't always mean better. GitHub Advanced Search with a focus on repo. Using the Advanced Search page, I recommend firstly selecting the language, then making sure the repo has had activity in the last month, with the push to filter. Include any other filters you may think are suitable for you. Using the advanced search with a repo focus is good, but the likelihood is that it will return too many results, making it difficult to find good repos. GitHub Advanced Search with a focus on issues. Using the advanced search page again, include a language filter like before, then go down to the issues options section. You definitely want in the state to be open. In the with labels field, you can add good first issue. Once you've found an issue or project you would like to contribute to, it is important to do some due diligence to make sure it is friendly and welcoming for contributors. I suggest check the license. Make sure it has an open source license. Not having any license does not make it more open. In fact, it limits the scope of what is possible. Have a look at the website Choose a License by GitHub with do's and don'ts of each license. Does the project have a README with instructions on how to set up the project? You don't need to try this yet, but if it looks detailed, that is good enough for now. You can try it later if other points are all positive. Does the repo have a contributing guide? This is a great way for repos to onboard new contributors. When was the project last active? Look at the latest commit and probably how many commits the repos had over the last few months. Are issues and pull requests being looked after by the maintainers? For example, are they commenting and in a friendly way? Contributions are not just about writing code. It can be through documentation, automated tests, and even project management. The question you need to think about is, will this contribution add value? There are two directions we can take. Create a new issue because we discovered, for example, a bug, or we found an issue we would like to work on. What project are we going to contribute to? I found an issue I'm keen to work on in the project Kestra. Before I tell you about the issue, let me share a bit more about the open source project Kestra and what it does. Kestra is a powerful orchestration tool that simplifies workflows. Kestra uses declarative syntax and has the functionality of multiple event-based triggers. What I really like is it has a great UI and code editor, so I can comfortably stay in the YAML config, see any errors I make immediately, as well as seeing the visual result in their diagram. However, it allows others who don't want to use the YAML config and who prefer to stay in the UI, they can stay in that view. Also, Kestra has over 600 plugins which allow you to integrate with other services very easily. For example, sending notifications to Slack, creating GitHub issues, and so many more. With these building blocks, just like in Lego, we can create anything we need. In addition, there are over 250 blueprints which are complete workflows you can easily tweak to suit your situation. Plus, did I mention Kestra is open source? Let me show you an example of how Kestra can be used. Here is my workflow I created that pings my website on a schedule, and if my website is down, it'll actually create a GitHub issue. How great is that? I've got my YAML config on the left, and I've actually got the visual representation of the flow. HTTP status check, it does the actual request, and then I've got this nested flow. And if it's unhealthy, it creates the GitHub issue. Otherwise, if it's healthy, it just logs that it's healthy. And if there's any error at all, then it also creates an issue too. Now, if I go over to my GitHub repo, you can see website is down, and it tells me that the URL of the server is down also. And we've actually got this in the YAML config here, so you can write the messages that you want. Server is unhealthy, this server URL is down. So this is it. 60 lines of YAML, but to be honest, 20 of them are actually just inputs, and you could put these in environment variables, you could put these in config files. There are so many different ways that you can do this with Kestra. And then here are the tasks. So I spoke about, got the HTTP status check, and then I've got the allow failure nested commands that we spoke about, and then I've got this errors that if there's an error, it kind of catches it all and also logs as an error as an issue as well. And to create the issue, I'm using the plugin from Kestra, which is got the create issues plugin. I pass it my parameters. I can even add labels. You can see I've got bugs. So if we go back to the issue, you can see added bug to my issue as well. So that is really, really awesome. I will be doing a full tutorial on how to use Kestra and create workflows in one of my future videos. So subscribe and turn on notifications with that bell button not to miss out. The open source GitHub issue on the Kestra project that I will solve today is this one. I found it because I was searching for good first issue on Kestra, and Kestra has so many more good first issues that are still unassigned, so take a look and find one for yourself. Let me show you how you can do it. So on the issues tab in the Kestra repo, there's a link in the description below. You can click on any label, or you could filter by the drop down, so you can search and you can say good first issue, check that. And now when we click off it and come back to this, it lists all these good first issues. These ones are not assigned and these ones are assigned. And they also have extra labels, for example, which area it's in. So this is in front end. And so you could filter by that as well. You could tick those checkboxes. So if you want to filter by back end, if you know Java, or front end, your JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and you've got other areas as well. So you can reduce the list down further and further. And here's the issue that's assigned to me. Now back to the issue that I'm going to work on. So from the issue title and description, it talks about when disabling a nested workflow, only the first child in the diagram is disabled and the rest of the children are not, but they should be. So this is the example that they've actually put in the description. I think is really good. So if I zoom in here, you can see the first one is disabled, but the others are not. So they've got a parallel task which has nested tasks underneath. And you can see that there are two tasks, and the parent task is disabled, but only the first one is disabled on the diagram. So we are going to fix this in this video. But before we ask the issue to be signed to us, before we create a pull request, before we do anything, I always recommend setting up the project locally and getting a rough idea of how to tackle the problem. The reason why it's important to set up the project locally and check that you got it running, and also that you understand a bit about the project, is you can ask questions before you get it assigned. Because as soon as you get it assigned, the community and the maintainers are relying on you to complete that. It's also important for your GitHub profile. You don't want lots of issues assigned to you and them not being completed. Before I asked for this issue to be assigned to me, what I did was set up the project locally. And I wanted to confirm that it was still a bug because this was raised in mid-January. So we're in mid-June now. So I just wanted to make sure that it was still a bug. So what I wanted to do was make sure that I could replicate this bug. So I've gone back to my local version. You can see this is localhost 8080. And I've gone to create. And I'm just going to change this example task here for the one that I copied from the issue. And now I'm going to close that and go to the diagram. And as you can see, they've changed it from faded to actually strike through. So that's one thing to be aware of. So the information provided in the description was correct at that time, and it's still a bug, just the style of that task being disabled has changed. And as you can see, it's got a strike through. But the bug still remains because the parent task is disabled, so this section here. But the second and third child haven't got the strike through like the first one does. So it's still definitely a bug. So I did read through the rest of the conversation to make sure that someone hasn't noticed anything else about the issue. I think it's really important to read through this. I noticed it was unassigned, someone hadn't completed the work. And I probably know why. It's because when I was going through the code of this repo, I actually discovered that the bug is not in this repo. It was actually in one of the dependencies. So I then proceeded to set up the UI libs project locally. And I actually had to modify the other repo locally, so the Kestra repo, this one, I had to modify that locally to use my local version. Otherwise, it was going to pull it down from NPM, and I wanted it to use my local version. So once that was done, I was more confident that I could fix the bug and see the changes. So what I then did was actually put in my comment explaining how to fix the bug and also that I wanted it assigned to me. So you can see here, I have debugged this issue and have a solution. Please see the screenshot. If I zoom in here and show you, as you can see, I'm using a similar example to what was provided before, but I put something outside. I want to make sure that it wasn't affecting the one outside. And as you can see, I have the parent disabled, but also the first, second, and third are also now disabled. They got that strike through. So I knew I'd fixed the bug. But you don't have to fix the bug before asking for the issue to be assigned to you. I just wanted to make sure because it was across two repos. And I'll create a PR and issue in the other repo, which we'll do together. And I got some nice reactions from the maintainers. And once the issue is assigned to you, definitely get the project up and running immediately if you haven't done so already. This isn't always as straightforward as we would think, depending on how many technologies are being used and depending on how up-to-date the documentation is for setting up the project. I find sometimes setting up the project is more difficult than the code changes themselves. But along this journey, you can improve the onboarding documentation for the project. Remember your superpower. You are new to the project and you can look at the documentation with a fresh pair of eyes. Plus, once you have the project running locally, you can take on future issues more easily. So it's a really good investment in yourself and the project to get it running locally, and don't jump around between lots of projects because now you've got the project running, you can pick up tasks a lot easier and you're going to familiarize yourself with the project a lot more. As you'll see, it's not just about changing a few lines of code to fix the bug. There is more to it, which is why I strongly recommend contributing to less projects, not contributing less, contributing to less projects and focusing on a smaller number of projects. That way, the investment of setting up your project will benefit you so much more in the next contribution. So as I said, I got the issue assigned to me now, but the changes we need to make are on the other repo. So I'll create an issue on another repo first, detailing the problem and referencing this issue. So let's do that. I'm going to copy a link to this issue, but rather than just the whole issue, I actually want to copy a link to my comments. You can do that by clicking on the date or days, weeks, hours ago here. Click on that and it will jump to it, you can see, and it's appended a deeper link on the page. So when you go to this link, so if I hit enter, you can see it will just come straight back to that comment specifically. And then we're going to go over to the UI repo and I'm going to go to issues and just check that no one else has created it. I don't think so. Okay, so I'm going to hit new and let's give it a descriptive title and description. There might be some duplication with the other issue. And if the title's harder for you, then work on the description first and then come back to the title afterwards. And if you want to see how that looks, you can click preview and you can see it goes over onto 2 lines here when I'm writing, but in the preview you can see that GitHub shortened it, so it actually looks a lot nicer to read. So I'm going to grab this example code up here and I'm actually going to put it in the issue as well. Remember to use Markdown to break up the big blocks of text, and you want to explain in the best way using Markdown to the other developers. DX, developer experience, is real on the information you're trying to get across. So try and look at your description with someone else in mind. You don't want to see a big block of text or just a screenshot and nothing else. Put a screenshot in there, and then here I'm going to add the example. And at the end, I'm going to say, please assign, I haven't finished, I'm going to put a screenshot in, but just as I thought of it, I'm going to say, please assign this issue to me. The original issue. And I can copy that link again. Is assigned to me. Please also assign this issue to me. Okay, so I want to put a screenshot in. So I want to do a before and after. Actually, I could take I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to use this screenshot because it's got the old design. It might be a bit confusing for someone. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this. Remember to use that preview and to see how it looks. And now for the title. Parent, task disabled, but only first child reflects. So I'm going to hit create. And remember, if there is something you want to change, you can click on this and hit edit. So if you're looking at it now, hopefully you've previewed it beforehand. If you're looking at it and you're thinking, actually I want to change something, you can. And let me just give you some tips. If you do want to add any more information, I would recommend hitting edit. Don't say, this is another comment or something, and hit comment, because all the people watching the repo are going to get notified, the maintainers, community members, and you don't want to spam them. So do think of the notifications that you'll be sending. If you agree with something, don't say I agree and that's it, because again it will spam those people. Just give a reaction like a thumbs up. Let me give you some Markdown tips as well. So you've got these along the top, but not everywhere has these, especially I think inline comments. Other places don't have them. So just remember you can do lists. So you've got list 1, list item 2, not 3. That's an unordered list. So if I hit preview, you can see what it looks like. I haven't hit comment, so it's not notifying anyone, don't worry. And if you want it to be ordered, you can do 1, so item 1, not item 2. And in a lot of places, especially GitHub, they kind of put the next number already, so you can go item 2 and hit enter, and it just does 3. The other disadvantage of this is, you hit preview, you can see it's ordered list. But the disadvantage of this, if I want to move this around, so I cut that line and then put it here, you can see the numbers aren't correct. So what I recommend doing is actually doing everything as 1. And when it renders the Markdown, it automatically increments it. That way you can move things around really easily, and it's always numbered correctly, like 1, 2, 3 down the left-hand side. So that's something to think of. You have got tables that are super useful for tabular information. And don't forget to emphasize writing with bold and italic. So I actually want to edit this. To put it into italics, it's a single asterisk on both sides. And if I wanted it in bold, it would be double. So as you can see now, that's italics. And if I wanted it to be bold, I could put double. But I don't want it to be in bold. But that's the whole line. And you can also do part of the line as well, so that's all in bold now. So let me put that back to be italics. And then if you want to put it to be in bold, you can just do part of the sentence. For example, so I'm going to hit save, and that's going to update it as well. And remember I said wait for the issue to be assigned to you. Well, yes, you do. But in this case, I don't believe that I need to wait, because the original issue was assigned to me. But I should still request it here to make sure that there's no confusion, because someone else might come along and go, oh, this issue is not assigned, and they want it assigned to them. So it's still important to request this issue to be assigned to me. There's different ways to get Kestra up and running, and their docs are really good, and you've actually got a video in their docs as well if you prefer. So you can do it with Docker, which is what I did. You can do Docker command. I also have done it with Docker Compose, because that's good fun and a great way to see it up and running and to customize it. And you've got all these other ways as well. So you've got standalone server. There's so many different ways. And they've also got Kestra Cloud in alpha at the moment, but that looks really, really good. So their instructions are short, concise. And like I said, there's a video if you want to do it that way. We want to build this locally and then have the actual Kestra parent repo consume this. So it's great that they've got documentation and they talk about how the project works and what you can do. So you've got getting started. And you've got the Hello World workflow, which I highly recommend having a read. So to develop on the front end, you need to run npm build. So npm run build. And you can run watch and other commands as well. And now that's built for the UI libs project, and then we want to go to the Kestra project and we want it to use our local version. You can see they've got how to use library for local development here. The other one has a lot more details for front and back end. This is what it recommends us to do. So we do npm install, and we give it the path to where we've put our UI libs in relative terms to our Kestra repo. So if I go to my Kestra repo, it's here. But if I go up a directory, or just list up a directory, you can see you've got the UI libs project as well. So in my package.json, what I would do is run. So I would navigate into the UI folder, and I would do npm install, and I've got up 2 folders because we want to go up from the UI into the parent folder, which is the root of this project, and then we want to go into the Kestra UI libs. And so now if you look at the package.json, it would have changed this line from what it was before, referencing in the npm package manager, to a local file path, which you can see here is the one we entered. And it's updated the lock file as well. Then we want to build the Kestra project locally, and we can do make install. We don't need make install plugins because I'm not doing plugins. So I do have extra documentation for that as well if you are creating plugins for it. Maybe that's something we'll do in the future. Let me know in the comments below if that's something you'd like me to do. And then make standalone Postgres. Make sure to stop the other instance that you've got running of Kestra. Check your Docker, check your terminals. Otherwise, when you come to make changes, you might think, why aren't changes coming through? So what I always recommend is stopping everything. I've gone to the page localhost 8080, and you can see it says can't find it. So it's definitely not running anymore from what I had before. So now I want to get the local version up and running. So we've got both projects set up. Now let's go look at actually making the changes. As you can see, for the disabled, it was originally checking, is this data node task disabled? And that's correct for that individual task, but not for the parent task. So what I added in was, or is the parent task node task disabled? And that's what I've done. And it actually didn't fix it because this data is not available. So therefore I went to where the data was coming in, and I've added that information in. So now I've added the parent. So I've added the parent to be sent into the view file so that I actually have that data available. So let's run the project and let's see if it works. So we'll need to do another build now that we've made changes to the project, because I wasn't doing monitor. And then let's go to the other project, and let's do make install and make start standalone local. And that's done. It says it's running on 8080. So if we go back to our browser where it wasn't running before, and if I hit refresh, now we've got the local version running using our local UI libs. We can go to create flow. So what we can do, we've got tasks, and if I create I'll say it's outside, and we're logging outside message. Let me close this and put the graph up. Now I want a way to run subtasks. So now we'll create some children tasks or some nested tasks, and we'll say first, and then we'll give it the type of log, and then the message will be first child. And then let's do another one, and then we can say second. And the type will be of log, and the message will be second child. Okay, this looks good so far. Let's center this. But we want to check with our code changes, does it work? So let's add disabled, true. And you can see all the children are now have the strike through, but the parent doesn't. So that works really well. So our code changes do work. So I highly recommend testing your code changes, and not just in that one scenario. As you can see, I put something outside to make sure that isn't affected. And we can do that again by putting another outside. I'll have to change the ID, but I can come down here and do it afterwards and go outside 2, for example, not to have the same ID. and then you can see that the one outside also doesn't carry through that strike through. That's always my concern, that something further down the workflow, kind of, I fix one bug, but then I create another bug, and that's something you definitely don't want to do, and that looks fine to me, so it looks really good. So now we need to create the pull request. I just had a GitHub notification to let me show you. So if I go to my GitHub notifications at the top here, which I recommend using the GitHub notifications inbox, you can see that on the UI libs folder, I think someone from Kestra maintainers has already commented. And yes, they've assigned it to me, so you can see what they've done here. So the Kestra bot added this to issues to their project board. Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate you assigning it to me, and he's put bug and area front-end labels on it as well. So that is great. So now we can create the pull request and link back to this issue. Remember to do that. That's really, really important. And there were no actual code changes to the core or the main Kestra IO project. We just made some npm package changes to look at our local version of the UI libs folder. So that's the one that we actually want to commit and make changes to. So we've got these two changes that we made. So next thing we want to do, what I recommend doing, is a git status -s, just check everything's okay. You can always do a git diff, or you can check it on here as we were before. So click on this and make sure we're happy with those changes. I am happy. I highly recommend creating a branch. It will work if you don't create a branch first time. Second time, you probably have conflicts with yourself. So I highly recommend never doing anything in the main or master branch. So you can do git checkout -b. So it will create the branch and switch to it. I don't know if they have a naming convention for their branches, but if the repo doesn't, what I recommend doing is just trying to be a bit descriptive. Don't just say my branch. I wouldn't put the repo name in the branch, because we already know, and the maintainers will know which repo that branch belongs to, because it only belongs to a single repo. So what I recommend doing is going bug and then say issue and put the number. So this is issue 561. So we've done that. So now we've created and switched a new branch. So you can see that. And our changes would have come across with us. So if I do a git status, it's still there. And like I said, we did a diff, and I'm happy with both those changes. What you'll notice is I didn't fork the project. I didn't take a copy of the project into my account so I can make changes to it. So if I do a commit now, I won't be able to push it because I'm not a maintainer on that repo. That's why you need to fork it first. So what I've done is I've created a branch, but again, I won't be able to push that branch to that repo. So if I do a git remote -v, you'll see it's pointing to the Kestra IO organization, which I'm not a maintainer on. So what I need to do is fork the project first. So we can go back to the project and I can hit fork. So now I've made a copy of it into mine, and we can name it what we want. I'm going to prepend it with Kestra because then I'll know it's from that organization without looking further into it. And I'm going to create a fork into my account. And so that will allow me to make commits to this. But like I said, you still don't want to do it to the default branch, which in this case is master. Most of the time now it's main, but repos that have been around for a while are master. So even if I had forked the repo first, I would still have to add a remote for the original repo, because I want to pull down changes in the future when I want to contribute, because I'm going to make a pull request of my changes, but they won't be in the default branch in my version of the repo because they must come down from the original repo. Let me show you, it'll make more sense. Origin should be the repo that I have access to. In this case, it's not. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to go git remove origin, and that's gone. So if I do git remote -v, and I'm going to do git remote add origin, I'm going to paste in the URL, which you can see now is eddyjoud Kestra UI libs. This is the repo that I forked. I have permission to it. And if I do a git remote -v, this is exactly how it would be if I cloned my forked repo. So with Git, there's just so many ways to do the same thing, and there isn't a right way. Find a workflow that works for you and learn about the other ones, because sometimes, like in this case, you might need it. So now this is as if I cloned my fork, but I still want to add the other repo for later on when I want to pull my changes once they get accepted, and other people's changes so I can contribute further. So what I'm going to do is do git remote add, and I'm going to call it upstream. And when we push and pull, we always give a name of where we want it to go. So origin will be my fork, upstream will be the original project. You can call these something else, like you call it my for origin, and you could call it, instead of upstream, you could say source, but I don't think that's good practice. I think it's good practice to use the naming conventions that everyone uses and Git recommends. So now I need to go back to the original project, so not my fork, and you can get it from here. And I'm going to go to code and I'm going to copy the URL. Yours might be HTTPS. I recommend SSH. And I'm going to add upstream. So now when I do git remote -v, it will tell me I have origin, which is mine. And then I have upstream, which is the original project. So what I can do now is I can do my commit. So I can do a git status -s, see what's changed. Nothing has changed from when we checked it earlier. And then I can do git commit -m, and you can stage your changes if you're trying to do multiple commits and all the rest. I don't need to in this case, so I'm just going to say I'm going to commit that, and I'm going to put in a descriptive message. And I could put dots at the end here, but I always find that quite dangerous because you might include files you didn't mean to. So I recommend just putting source, and in this case, I'm going to say I fixed. I'm going to try and be descriptive but concise at the same time. So if we go to the bug, and I might just use something along the lines that we mentioned in the issue so it makes sense. One thing you could do is go to the original project and you could actually click on commits and you can see how they've done it. And they have, you can see fix, chore, and then put in an area that it's specific to about that commit. So that's really good. So yeah, they're using conventional commits and so am I. So that works out really well. Do check that you're following their style. You don't want changes to your pull request not to be about the code, but to be about your commit. So I would try and get this right. And look at what they've got so far. Parent task disabled, including children. So maybe inc children. I can't make it too long. Parent task disabled, including all children. Let's commit that. So I've committed that. So if I do a status, you can see it's not there. If I do a log, you can see it has my commit. And if I do a git what changed, it will show me that those were the two files that changed. It's exactly what I want. So now I can push that. So I want to push to origin, which is my fork, and I want to push to that branch. So now I've pushed. If we go back to GitHub, and this is the original repo, this is the upstream repo, so it's not there. So if we go to mine, and GitHub's clever enough, it knows that I've got a fork of it, so you can kind of create the pull request from the original repo or from mine. It's the same. So I'll do it from mine because what most of you will have open. And one thing to note, if you don't see it across forks, make sure you click this and you want the base to be the destination where it's going to go. In this case, Kestra IO, UI libs repo. It's going to go to their master branch, which is their default branch. And from mine, it's going to be my username, what I named the repo. I recommend keeping this as close as you can to the original. I did prepend it with Kestra, and then my branch, and that's the branch I'm on. And it's already put my commit message up here, which is great. And the description for the pull request is really, really important. So you can see the changes. So don't include these changes in the description unless you specifically need to because you want to talk about a particular thing. So I always recommend adding closes and then the issue number. So if we go back to the issue number, it's 561. So closes hash 561. And GitHub will show you which one it's about, so you can make sure it's the correct one. So closes is great, so therefore when they accept and merge the pull request, it automatically closes the issue for them. They have to do 2 steps. So make it easy as possible for the maintainers to review your pull request, understand your pull request, and also issue management as well. A lot of the time the pull request can get merged, but the issue remains open, which can confuse a lot of people. And we're all human, we'll make mistakes, so just make it easier and automate as much as possible, and this is a really easy way to automate things. Some pull requests have a template recommended by the project, and if they do, make sure you don't delete it and then just start from scratch. Use their template, it really helps the maintainer. This project doesn't, and that's absolutely fine. Just be descriptive. I think a good way is to show people how they can test the project, and before and after screenshots is always helpful, especially for visual changes. So in this case, what we can do is we can take things from our issue as well. So this is the bug, this is the before, and then we can do the after screenshot as well. Remember to hit preview and just check it looks okay. So you've got the before. I might put the before in a heading. So you've got one hash with a space afterwards. Remember the space, otherwise it won't work. And that's for like a H1, so for heading 1. And then you've got 2 for heading 2, and then you 3, 4 up to 6 of the hashes. Remember that space afterwards, so you can preview it, and I think that looks a lot more readable now. Now in the Kestra IO repo, if the parent task is disabled, then all the children tasks should also be disabled. And then I'm going to put in some YAML example to make it easier for them, so they have to create their own so they can test it out themselves. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in there. And what you'll see is I've also put YAML, give your code blocks, because if I don't put that in and hit preview, you can see it's just all like monotone, like single color. But by putting in YAML, you can see it's just a bit easier to read. Again, think of that DX for the other person. There are about, 12 Markdown tricks or tips that you should use, and I highly recommend learning them. It will make your content stand out, and you'll get your pull requests merged sooner. I think that looks good. I'm allowing edits by maintainers. Got a screenshot before and afterwards, and we've got closes that. So I'm going to hit create. If we go back to the original issue on the Kestra repo, it's called Kestra. Let me go edit my pull request I just created, because I called it Kestra IO, and actually that should be just Kestra. Now we're in the Kestra repo. Like, these little things are very small, but it might confuse someone who's not familiar with the project. They might be thinking you're referring to the organization rather than the repo. So make sure you're specific. I could put that as a link, but I haven't in this case. I don't think there's a right or wrong. So I'm going to go back to my issue, and what you'll notice is when you raise a pull request, it links it here. So now people who find the issue can then also find the pull request and vice versa. They link both ways. So if I go to the pull request, you can click on this and it goes to the issue. So you've got that great connection. But another thing to think about is the original issue is on a different repo in this example. And the issue has been linked because I put a link to this issue in it, but the pull request doesn't link to it. So what I might do is edit this again and also say original issue. And I'm going to grab that original issue link and put it here. And GitHub will shorten it. If you do the preview, you'll see it shortened. But then that way, if I hit update, you can see now it's mentioned in this issue that we had before, but now it's also mentioned in this pull request. So therefore, people who are following this issue can straight away see that there is a pull request that's been raised on a different repo for this. So these are some extra steps. You probably won't have this on all your contributions, but it's good that I have a slightly more complicated one here to show you these different steps. While we're waiting for that to be reviewed, I want to point out a few other important tips that can help you with your contribution. If you need feedback sooner, you can actually submit a draft pull request. That way the community and the maintainers know it's not ready to be accepted, but you've raised a draft one because you might have some questions and you want to show them what you've got so far. So it's a great way to start conversations with the maintainer and the project's community members early on, especially if you have questions and need help. And remember, the title and description of the pull request are just as important as the changes that you have made. Make sure they're relevant. Don't write an essay, but don't write nothing at all as well. Remember not to chase the maintainers. I know I'm super excited that I've made this contribution. I want them to accept it or at least feedback for any tweaks that I need to make. As you can see, this pull request was raised 3 minutes ago. I don't want to go and chase them on Slack or Discord on social media and DM them and say, merge my pull request. They know about my pull request. They've been notified about it. And some projects are more active than others. You can see Kestra is really active. After raising that issue earlier, it already got assigned to me really quickly. But also remember that a lot of these maintainers do try and have that work-life balance. They might not respond to you as fast on the weekend, and please respect their time and space. After a week, if you haven't heard anything, maybe add a comment to your issue or pull request, or try and go into their Slack or Discord, so therefore you can ask if there's anyone around who can have a look at it. As you can see, it's the next day, and my pull request has been reviewed, but not only reviewed, it's been accepted and merged. So thank you, Piyush, hopefully I pronounced your name right, for reviewing and merging it. That is awesome. So what I can do now is I can actually delete this branch, because I don't need to keep this branch. My changes have been put into the default branch on this repo. So I can hit delete branch, And if we go back to the main page of the repo, this is the master branch, and you can see there is my commit. If I click on the commit history, you can see this went in, so that is awesome. And we can see if there has been any tags taken, because that's what the other project will use. And you can see the latest one is 207. And if we expand this and have a look, it's got my fix in there. So that is awesome. And you can also click on this and it goes straight to the pull request. And I had closes up here with the issue number. So if I go to the issue, you can see it's also closed as well. So that is really cool. So my changes in the UI libs repo have been accepted, merged, and a release has been created. So the next thing I want to check is the Kestra project that uses the UI libs. Has that started using it yet? Because that means that everyone who's using the project and that version, if it's been released, will be using my bug fix, which is super exciting. So let me go into the UI folder and then go to package.json, and let's have a look for UI libs. We can see it here, 207, which is what we saw the tag in the UI libs repo. So that's great. So that's really good. It is in a default branch, the develop branch, using that. However, I don't think a tag or a release has been taken yet because it says 3 days ago and there hasn't been one since. So if I have a look at the release notes, you can see that mine isn't in there yet. So in their next release, my changes will be in there, and I can actually then update my local copy of the Kestra project and see the bug fix fixed and working and using my changes. But before you go, there is still something that we need to do so that you can contribute again next time. Remember earlier on in the video, I spoke to you about pulling down the changes to update your version. You don't merge in your changes into your own local copy. Your changes come down from the upstream repo. So let me show you how you can do that. Here you'll see we're in the UI libs repo locally, and we're in my branch that we created with my changes, and the latest commit is my commit with my 2 changes. Okay, well, we don't need this branch anymore because they are in the default branch. So if I go back to the default branch, which in this project is not main, it's master. And if I do a git log or git what changed, my changes aren't there. And if I do a git pull origin master, you can see there are no changes. And if I do a git what changed again, you can see that my changes aren't there. That's because when I do a git pull origin is my fork, and my fork hasn't got the changes in the original repo. So I can show you also in GitHub. So now if I go back to my fork, you can see that this branch is 2 commits behind. One of them is my commit, and I haven't got it in the master branch. If you look, as you can see, my changes aren't here, and we need to get my changes here. And we don't want to do that by merging my branch into this, because then we'll have conflicts. Conflicts aren't bad when they're correct, as in you and someone else has changed the same line of code, but you don't want conflicts with yourself. That's just creating more work for yourself and more confusion. So here GitHub has actually done a sync. I'm going to show you how you can do it on the command line, but you can also do it through the UI as well. So if you remember from before, we did the remotes. So what you would do is you would add the upstream, which is the original repo, kind of the source or the parent repo. So we've already added that. So that is great. That's done and set up. But we want to get the changes from that one, and then we want to add it to our origin, so our forked version of the project. So first of all, we want to do is git fetch upstream. So lots of things have come down. Okay, that's great. We are in the default branch, so this is important. Make sure you change back from your branch that had all the changes. So in this case, it's default branch is master. And then we want to do git merge, and we want to do upstream and the name of the default branch, which in this case is master. And as you can see, my changes are now there. So if we do git what changed, you will see this is my commit, co-authored. And there are my 2 file changes, and they're in our default, so our master branch. So now if you want to make more changes to the project, make sure you create a new branch again, and you make it from the default branch that's updated. So in this case, I would go git checkout -b, and I would name the branch whatever I am doing. Like I said, probably best to do the issue number 1, 2, 3, for example. But you remember to create the branch not from your previous branch that we created before in our previous contribution, because again, that will create conflicts with yourself and confusion. Just this extra step will just help you to keep things simple for you, so you can just focus on adding value and not getting stuck. And so now what I can do on my fork, again, it still thinks it's behind. My local copy is up to date, but my fork on GitHub is a bit behind. So I can just do git push origin master, because I'm pushing the changes that I fetched from the upstream. So now I've pushed that. You can now see that it says this branch is now up to date. So now my local and my fork are up to date, and I can keep contributing. If you're working on something that's taking you a lot longer because you've got other responsibilities or it's just a big piece of work, remember to keep your default branch up to date. So for example, if I did create a temporary branch, as I said, git checkout, I want to work on a new feature or bug, and I just say fix, I'll just say call it temp for temporary, right? So we're in this branch. If I'm doing this for a long time and the project is quite active and having lots of changes, I highly recommend bringing in those changes into your branch. You can do this in various ways, and the way I would do it, I'll show you now, but if you do it another way, that is fine as long as you get the same result. So what I would do is I'd make sure all my changes are committed in my branch, and then I would switch back to the master or the main, and then I'll go through the same workflow that you just saw earlier. So I'd fetch the latest changes from the upstream, and I would make sure that this is up to date with the upstream repo, and then I would go back to my branch without the -b, because I'm not creating it, I'm just changing it, and I would merge master into my branch, so it's always up to date. Otherwise, when I do raise the pull request, not only is my branch going to be really far out of date, that I will also potentially have a lot more conflicts. So you want to keep your branch that you're working on as up to date as possible with changes that are coming in. The project might not be moving very fast, and therefore you don't have to do this very often, but if it's a fast moving project, I'd recommend doing this kind of every day. There are occasions where you might not want to do this, but the majority of the time you will want to. You will want to have the latest code in your branch. This can be confusing and overwhelming, but once you've done it 1 or 2 or 3 times, it will start making a lot more sense. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments and I will reply to you. Kestra is at over 19,000 stars, almost at 20. Make sure you star the project, go support them and contribute and get involved. Link in the description below. Don't stop there. Now you have the project set up locally and have a better understanding of the project, keep going. Contributing is not just about pull requests, it's also about reviewing other pull requests and issues. But don't blindly approve pull requests, as this is the fastest way to get banned from a project. Remember, it's about adding value, not noise. Each time you do something like leave a comment, many people get notified. So don't leave multiple comments with a single line in each. It is not a DM, but please don't even do that in DMs. I hope this video has inspired you to contribute to open source. So no matter where you are in your career, contributing to open source is beneficial because it helps you learn and collaborate with others. So what are you waiting for? Go and get involved and contribute to open source today. A good place to start is Kestra's open source project, and I have linked their repo in the description below. You can click on issues at the top and then filter by good first issue. Any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in Kestra's GitHub repo.